Hello and welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, a brief guide for new players on the fastest way to design new Magi. If you've never listened to the podcast before and you've been handed this recording by your story guide or other members of your troupe, hello, my name's Timothy Ferguson. I was one of the most prolific authors for the last version of Ars Magica. Here are some hints for designing a character that you'll enjoy playing. First, play style. Get your group to decide if they're going to do the suggested thing, which is that each story has one or two Magi and everyone else plays companions, or the thing that most troupes seem to do, which is everyone just sends their mages. This matters because it determines what role your mages will play in stories. Is your magus going to be in charge every time it's on stage, or is he or she just part of a group of equals? Is he the heavy artillery, despite not being from a combat-ready house? Or is there going to be another magus bringing the fire so that yours can specialise in anything else? House. The houses are the character classes for Magi. Which house you pick doesn't matter, though, initially. In later character development, some will bind you more than others. House Meronita and Verditus have inner mysteries which use a completely different sort of rule system, and most Creamans are pacifists. I believe the best houses for brand new players are House Bonasagus, which are the pure magical researchers and diplomats. They can be researching pretty much any style of magic, and that gives them a reason to be out of their laboratories in the world discovering secrets. House Flambeau. There's a philosophy behind it, but they love solving their problems by killing things and breaking stuff. Ars Magica can have a sort of choice paralysis for new players because the magic system's so flexible. House Flambeau strips all that away by essentially saying your options are the knife, the pistol, the grenade, or the flamethrower. Once the game rolls on, there's a lot about chivalry and flame mysticism, but as a new player, it's a simple choice. House Yarburton lets you pick a minor virtue in lieu of their house virtue in setting because they don't care. They similarly don't care if you join another house later. They're the house that's interested in beauty, and they know that beauty varies with the beholder, so this is the one you choose if you don't want to make a big deal out of what your choice has been for now. House Tremare prizes obedience. This means your character will always have something to do and may be provided with resources to do it. Sure, your character has to follow orders, but so does James Bond, and he seems to enjoy his life some of the time. Characteristics. Characteristics are a bad idea, and the game shouldn't have them. As a magus, you'll feel the need to put your intelligence at a minimum of +2, so your character is not the stupidest magus in the group, and this means that all of you are making the same choice, and that's boring. And when intelligence rolls are required, you all make pretty much the same roll. This leaves you enough points to put 1 against any other 2 characteristics. There are rules for getting extra points by trading down your physical characteristics, but ignore them your first go round. Just wade through this. Virtues and flaws. Virtues and flaws are ways to make your magus unique, but their usual effect is to make them the same as their housemates. You'll be given a free minor virtue based on your choice of house. Most of these you can safely ignore in your first game, although the one for House Bajorna, which turns you into a specific animal at will, is both useful and fun. As a rule of thumb, a virtue either adds 1 to your dice roll for an entire characteristic, 3 for an entire ability, or 6 for a specialized situation in an ability. If you can't find a virtue you like, just make one up and have your troupe approve it. Sometimes this is faster than wading through the book to find the precise name for what you hope to find. I want to be great at parties, for example, is a +3, even if you don't manage to decode it down to R-speak, which is knack in carouse. Just because you can choose a heap of flaws doesn't mean you should. Virtues can be earned in-game, so there's no need to make your character a one-eyed kleptomaniac with a determined enemy, just to afford another major virtue. Pick flaws you'll enjoy having, and that signal the kind of stories you want to tell. Similarly, don't pick virtues because they maximize your killing potential, unless you really want the stories to be about your killing potential. Pick virtues that are fun, not for the mechanical advantage. As story guide, I keep a copy of the virtue and flaw list of each character so that I can make sure that I hit the narrative marks. that my players have chosen. The magical affinity virtue is the game's way of telling you it will give you a bonus if you pick a character theme. Take it, but not at the outward level. Choose a motif that's yours. This is far more important than the number on your character sheet. Spells. Pick spells that you think would be fun to cast. Your story guide's job is to give you great opportunities to cast them. In role-playing games, the GM, let's look behind the curtain for a minute, sets the size of the creatures attacking you to suit the power of the player characters. It doesn't matter at all if you can deal 5 or 10 damage. That just means the enemy you're facing in the story is slightly larger. I'm not saying don't take combat spells. I am saying that designing your character for maximum killing power is pointless, and you, in your heart of hearts, know that it's pointless. Don't spread your build points across the magical arts. Pick a form, a noun, and 1 or 2 techniques, verbs. Don't choose aquam, aurum, imaginum, or vim. I love them, but they take a bit more getting used to than practical things like herbum. A high enough form will let you do minor magic in other techniques of that form using the spontaneous magic rules. My rule of thumb is cribbed from the Amber role-playing game. Always have an attacking spell, a defensive spell, and a spell that changes your environment. Sometimes spells do double duties. It's great to have majestic spells. I loved playing a new Magi who had Incantation of Lightning and a Flight spell, both mastered, and that was pretty much all she could do. In Ars Magica, those small spells get through magic resistance, or the diminished effect of civilization, better than powerful spells. Think about clever ways to use spells in the 10 to 20 point range together. Don't get bogged down in abilities. For new players, I let them just keep a pool of unspent points and use them up as the idea of their character gels through play. Avoid spending 1 point on heaps of abilities. Abilities are what you have servants for. Make big purchases in the abilities that you want to do cool things with during scenes in stories. Your character is already a superhero. You shouldn't care if they have 1 or 2 in an aerial or skill. I also have a buyer's remorse rule. If you've spent points on something and it's never mattered to your character, you can cash it back in and spend it on something else. Did you buy Artes Liberales 6 to look wise and then find out that's boring and you wanted practical skills? Well, take your points back. I personally extend this to spells and virtues, but your troop will probably vary. Each ability gets a specialization, which is a 1 point bonus in limited circumstances. Again, fill them in as you go, switch them under the buyer's remorse rule. Don't get bogged down onto making sure that you wring every advantage from the design phase. Weapons. Most Magi don't use them. You're a magician. You can kill people by waving at them for a minute or so. Even if your best combat spell just throws a rock, it's still better than a dagger. It's arguably better than a sword. Just carry some really sharp rocks. You have a bodyguard. Let them do weapons while you do spells. Suggested stat block for a new Magus. Intelligence 2 plus 1 on any other 2 characteristics, all others 0, which is human average. Virtues and flaws. You get 1 as a freebie, which you can ignore in the beginning. Take a minor magical affinity and a story flaw at minimum. Work up from there if you like. Abilities. You get 165 experience points to spend here, but there are some compulsory buys. At minimum, the game suggests native language with specialization, 5, Latin with specialization, 4, Artes Liberales, specialization, 1, Magic Theory, specialization, 3, Parma Magica with specialization, 1, and your native language is free, and so that costs 90 points, leaving you 75 to spend, which is either 2 abilities at a score of 3 with 3 at a score of 1, or 1 ability at a score of 3 with 3 abilities at a score of 2, or 5 abilities at a score of 2. If you already have a score of 1 in something else because of a virtue choice, just move the 1 point somewhere else to refund the point. You have 120 points to spend in magical arts. Choose 1 noun and 2 verbs. It costs 121 points to have a score of 11 in one arts, 10 in another, and 0 in the rest. I'd give you the free point if you were in my game. Alternatively, 2 verbs at 7 and 1 noun at 11. Again, that costs 2 points more than you technically have, but I'd give them to you. Pick spells. You have 120 levels of spells. Spells are the fun bit. Since you are limited, don't browse the entire book now. Just read the bit that matches your technique and form combinations. If you are specialized as above, then each spell's maximum level is technique plus form plus 8. Technically, it's 9 with a relevant magic theory specialization. That means if you only have 2 arts and a relevant magic theory specialization, your maximum spell level is 30. If you have 3 arts, as above, the maximum spell level is 26. Welcome to Ars Magica. Our community online is small but very friendly and inclusive. We tend to gather at the Atlas Games forum. There are also a couple of podcasts, one of which is Games from Folktales, which I like the best because it's mine. But your saga may vary.